So if you're following along at home, you're going to do your own build here. Listen to my advice. If you're starting with an engine that you know the history of, right? You know, it's a running engine. You bought it running, or you had it. It was running. It was together. You know the history of it. Clean it up and drop it in the car, and don't worry about it. But if you're starting with something that you don't know the history of, something that you bought, you know, off of Craigslist or Facebook, or tear the thing down. Forget about what it looks like on the outside. Tear it apart, because you never know what kind of stuff you're going to find inside of it. And that's what happened here. I was actually tempted to just give this thing a quick cleaning and throw it in the car. I'm glad I tore it apart. So let me show you what we found. We'll start with the good stuff, and then we'll work our way into the bad things. The first out was the cam and the lifters. And here we lucked out, assuming we're going to use this cam. It's in good shape. There's no signs of gouging or dragging of any of the rollers. So this thing looks like it can clean up and just go right back in. Not a problem. The lifters themselves, all of the rollers feel smooth, even, tight. They're in good condition. And again, we could just clean these things up and reuse them. And that's good, because this is like expensive stuff. But then we went a little further when we knocked the pistons out. And the first thing we found was that a couple of the bearings were showing copper. There's one right here, which is a sign of wear, you know, obviously. So we're going to have to throw some rod bearings in there, probably mains too. The crank is still in it. I'll wait till I put it on the ground and pop the crank out of it. But I'm assuming I'm going to find the same stuff. Then we knocked the pistons out. So now, look at the cylinder walls here. They're nice and clean. Now this engine was stuck at some point from a little bit of surface rust, and I mean really just a little bit of surface rust. But we knocked the pistons out of it, and here's one. The rings are embedded in the pistons. Like there's no give here. Oil ring, second ring, top ring, they're all just frozen in there. The oil ring's got a little bit of give. These other ones are just stuck in the pistons. So now we can probably save the piston by heating this, you know, with a propane torch, getting the aluminum to expand a little bit, and then digging these rings out. But these rings are going to be toast. Now, if we had just taken things for granted and said, well, you know, it spins, let's just throw it together, we would have had at least one dead player here. And there's a couple of others. They're not, some of them are free, like this one. This one's in nice shape, right? And then some of them, like this one right here, the top ring, see the second ring is good, the oil ring is stuck, and the top ring is stuck. So these are cylinders that would have been basically dead players. Good thing we tore it apart. But that's not where the fun ends. So let's, where's that pointer I had? I lost my pointer. We don't need it. The first things first is, if you look, at some point somebody put a timing chain in this engine, and they went absolutely ape shit with the orange silicone. Don't ask me why, right? Pure fucking butchery. I say no big deal, it's sloppy, right? Well, it's not sloppy. A lot of the silicone they put around these water passages here migrated through the cooling system in a block. So here's one of the steam holes, and it's actually got a piece of silicone, there you go, sticking out of it. And then, don't ask me how this happened. If you look at the crank, let's spin this motor around the other way. Look at up inside the oil hole. That's just dirt. I have no idea how that amount of dirt can get into the crank, you know, and stuck in an oil hole there. It got past the filter, however it happened, there it is. So obviously this crank is going to have to be gone through. It didn't chew up the journals. The journals actually look like they're in good shape. We'll have to mic these and just make sure, but it looks like we should just be able to polish this and put it back together again. But all of the oil passages are going to have to be gone through. So the moral of the story is, regardless of what it looks like and how easy it spins and everything else, you don't know what's in there until you crack it apart and you go through all of the, the various systems. So our next step with this is I'm going to drop the crankshaft out of it and start giving this thing a bath. I'd send it off to the local machine shop for them to, but they're closed because of the virus shit. So anyway, we continue on with the filthy stuff, and I'll see you tomorrow.